Welcome back, everyone, to Vox Markets. My name is Paul Hill, and I'm delighted today again to be able to speak to LeCoque, the Exec Chairman of SoureBio International, a leading medical diagnostics, lab services, and COVID testing business. So welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Paul. Good to see you again.
Massive congrats on this morning's very positive trading update. I mean, it looks as though you guys have knocked the ball out of the park, with sales increasing from 21 million in 2019 to over 50 million in 2020, and then adjusted EBITDA almost increasing fivefold from 3 million to 14 million pounds. Now, I could probably guess what are the sort of the key drivers. Could you quickly just walk us through the sort of supercharged performance last year?
Well, as we know, we're getting more and more involved on the COVID testing side. We've done very well with some of our larger partners, DHSC, other private companies, and we are supporting the effort going forward. And also, our base business had a little bit of a pickup in the last quarter of the year.
Right, and I see that you also mentioned that January started well. So, what is the outlook for the sort of the COVID testing side? Have you got enough capacity?
We're building capacity. We should have enough for what we're going to need. But yes, the need for testing is going to continue. We're supporting the effort in many different ways with the DHSC and some other private hospitals and some other private companies. But the reality is, as the vaccine rolls out, you're going to need testing. And if you get into Fit to Fly and other things, that you're going to need passports to get into sports arenas, you're going to need some type of testing that's going to be implemented across the country for some time.
And what sort of capacity do you have? I know you were targeting, I think, 10,500 tests per day on capacity-wise. Are you there at the moment, and are you looking to increase?
We're there. We're looking to increase that. I hesitate to say the amount, because then someone's going to want to increase our forecast. But yes, we're going to get higher than that.
Oh, okay. And can you talk us through this surge capacity agreement you've done with the NHS? I mean, just did the numbers. It looks as though in December you had done 330,000 tests with the NHS. You say today you've done 400,000, so that's 70,000. If you just sort of re-engineer the number of the value of it, was it 7.6 or 7.8, something like that, million pounds for it, a maximum. It's sort of like, isn't it doubling what you currently did in December or something? It's a big.
Well, it was December was a big month. The new spike happened. We had significant demand from many of our customers, not just the DHSC, but then yes, they restarted a surge contract with us to support their testing efforts. So December was a big month, and January is continuing to be as strong.
And given it as the gold standard for the PCR testing, who are you actually testing in the NHS? And is it basically their employees and patients, or is it who is it for the NHS?
It's frontline workers. It is patients going into hospitals. It is staff. So it's just we get samples from the DHSC, and a lot of it comes even from the Lighthouse labs that can't keep up with the capacity.
Okay, and what's the significance of that strategic agreement you signed with Oxford Nanopore in December? Because that seems to be adding to your capacity, or is it swab tests rather than blood draw, isn't it? I think.
No, Oxford Nanopore's got a great technology, LamPORE technology. We're putting that in our Nottingham facility. We are validating it as we speak, and that will be part of our offering and part of our increased capacity. And the benefit, Oxford Nanopore, didn't have a full service accredited lab to partner with. We are now partnered with them. So we actually go out and talk to customers jointly and provide a total solution to their needs, rather than just a technology and or a service.
And do they have any capacity, or are you just using their technology and the actual services being run out of Nottingham?
We're using their technology in Nottingham.
Okay, fine. And are you? I mean, I'm just thinking off the sort of top of my head here, sort of stuff. You've obviously got the first-rate, medical grade lab in Nottingham. I mean, if anybody wants sort of mobile, sort of like PCR testing, is that something you could consider doing?
We are looking at offering that. That is part of our focus, and we are looking to bring that forward in this coming year.
To give you extra capacity, yeah.
And also just to get it out to the communities. The government's trying to get the testing out to the communities, and that's a very effective way to do it. So we're going to support that effort with DHSC and other entities that want to do that.
And then the sort of you signed a contract just recently with a leading high street UK pharmacy, and I'm guessing that is because none of us can go abroad unless we get sort of like COVID cleared. They can't even travel to the US. Nobody can come into the US. Nobody can come into the UK from now on. So, I mean, obviously it's from a starting position, but going forward, I mean, is that directly for the travel and to help people sort of like safely work and to socialize as well?
I mean, certainly the travel market's part of that. I think the other piece of it is just a retail availability of testing where you can go in if you're going to go see your family, if you're going to go do something where you need to get some type of certificate that you don't have COVID, you can just go in and get it yourself, and it's an easy way to do it. Okay.
And then sort of like, let's just hypothetically think, after sort of mass vaccinations, with regards to sort of like getting herd immunity, and that should be sort of like hopefully by mid to late, sort of this year, etc. How do you see the sort of the testing business sort of panning out?
Well, I think we've got to be careful on the term herd immunity because we just don't know at this point when that's going to happen, if it does happen. If these strains keep mutating and you've got different strains that potentially won't even work with a vaccine, you could be looking at a COVID situation that's more like the flu than a specific virus. And so we believe there's going to be testing into the future. Even if the vaccine is rolled out, it's only going to probably be given to 60% of the population. So you've got 40 that doesn't have it. So there is going to be a need for testing to get onto planes, to, as I said before, to go into sports arenas. I mean, there is going to be a need for the sort of passport, testing to make sure you don't have the virus.
Yeah, I'm totally on board because given this sort of like highly mutated strain that suddenly appeared in the UK and South Africa and now Brazil, we're going to need at national and a regional level a super sensitive way of quickly identifying whether this virus has changed its protein spike, or even talk of not even using a protein spike, and therefore you need testing to be able to lock that particular sort of like strain down, and also if you need to then change tweak your vaccines, etc.
Tweak the vaccine.
So
think about that. Think about tweaking the vaccine. I mean, yes, you can do that, but then all of a sudden you've got a supply chain. So now the supply chain of vaccine you got doesn't work for this particular strain. You've got to resupply the supply chain, so to speak. So this isn't going to be as easy as people think to try to do that. And look, no one wants the vaccine more than everybody at source, but we just know the limitations if it's going to keep mutating, and that's just a concern to everyone.
Oh yeah, you're still going to need. I mean, I just cannot see us not having. And let's be clear about it. If people are traveling abroad, it's going to be mandatory to basically have tests. Now, just on actual testing, you do the antigen testing. What about sort of the? I know when we chatted in November, I think it was, you were thinking about sort of antibody, but they hadn't yet got the accuracy. And I know in certain instances, it's getting the accuracy in antibody testing is coming towards it. How are you thinking about adding antibody testing to your antigen testing?
Well, there is new development that are coming to market on the antibody side that are very accurate and measure the T cells. And so I think there is likely scope for antigen testing for the general population to see your immunity level. And in some ways, it could even perhaps determine if you need the vaccine. So yes, I think there are developments going on that look encouraging.
Yeah, and that's because you mentioned in the trading statement that you are looking at different testing services. Are there any other services you're looking at all, or?
Well, without getting
You've
into specifics,
enough on your plate, I suppose.
No. I think without getting too specific on technologies, I think we're sort of following the DHSC lead, where they want PCR is the absolute gold standard.
Yes.
They want other technologies to determine if people are very infectious. So they might only care about the people at the top of the curve. They might not care about these two in this particular test. With us, they're going to get the whole band. But it's just we're going to follow their lead in developing technologies that can combat this virus. And I think from talking to them, it's almost a war mentality. They're throwing everything they have at it to try to combat and contain the virus.
Yeah, and then just for investors, just to understand it, you obviously do the gold standard, the PCR tests, which are super accurate, and then the actual testing in the community is the lateral flow tests, which are sort of like rough and ready and only.
Well, there is an opportunity to use PCR in local communities with mobile testing. That is a potential.
Okay, because I mean, essentially, you have the NHS and critical services where you in high contact areas where you can't afford the results to be wrong, i.e., get a false negative,
Right.
Okay, whatever it is, you basically don't you don't actually recognize somebody who's got COVID.
Right.
In that, any of these are mission critical, like in a hospital or GP or anything like that, you just got to have a PCR test. You can't have these sort of like lower level specificity and sensitivity tests. So can you?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
that was just, I thought so. Just wanted to make sure, just for investors.
Yeah.
Now, just carrying on then with the reopening rate, and I don't want this to be dominated by just testing, but it has been obviously a big growth driver. But now, just looking at your other divisions, can you just walk us through how those are sort of positioned? We've got the healthcare diagnostics, the genomics, and the storage business. Because I mean, just top level, there was a horrible statistic in the UK this week, and tragedy. The highest level of patients awaiting for operations in the UK at 4.5 million was recorded this week, which meaning we've got a massive backlog and waiting list of elective procedures, cancer screening, biopsies that need to be done. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, and it's probably the same around the world as well.
Indeed. I think the backlog of elective surgeries is growing. We've talked about this tsunami of cases that's coming. Certainly now when you've got this third spike, that's being pushed back again. I think the other concern that everyone is having is that people that now have cancer, it's getting worse because you can't get treatment for it. So they're gonna have to come out with some way to possibly, again, put together those lighthouse labs or nightingale labs to get COVID patients into those labs so you could do surgeries in the NHS hospitals. So they're working through that. It's not an easy situation. I think everyone was assuming that, we'd get through that initial spike. And then you had the one in August, September, and now you've got this one. So we're just reacting as this develops.
Yeah.
So certainly, the cellular pathology business we have, we're gearing up for that to really take off once we can get through this current situation. Our ref lab business is already expanding with new tests and personalized medicine. Our genomics business, our NGS business, which was a bit soft in 19.
NGS
is very strong.
Is next generation, is it?
Right. Next generation sequence. It's when you sequence a whole genome, and then you've got Sanger sequencing, which is also coming. And then we've got our stability storage business, which is also doing fairly well given the situation that we're in. So, the base business itself is a it's a very good portfolio of businesses, so to speak, and business segments. You put the COVID on top, and the way we're trying to manage that going forward, and we've got some nice growth into 21 and 22.
Well, it could take years to get through the backlog of elective procedures, there's no doubt about it, and it's going to be a sort of like a massive hard slog. But I think the key important bit to take away for investors is that unfortunately, we're not cancelling anything. This is basically just deferring it, and it's just creating a huge mountain for us to that eventually will have to be cleared by people like obviously SoureBio to do that.
Right.
And the other thing, which is again really interesting, is if anything, the two takeaways that really investors have sort of grasped from COVID is, one, how important medical sciences to the world, and equally the amount of money being put in has rapidly increased the development of new sciences. So the uses and the applicability of sequencing and personalized medicine has now been brought forward. How many years? I don't know, but it's certainly been accelerated. So I would say to investors, when it comes to looking at sort of like businesses like SoureBio, okay, we've got numbers out there, blah blah blah, but push the clock forward 5 years. You've probably accelerated a lot of of that science. I mean, we've just got to look at mRNA, with regards to vaccines. That's just it wouldn't have been there, sort of stuff otherwise. So I think big picture wise, there's a massive tailwind behind the whole level of services, sort of like medical sciences. Now, just on the I think the one thing else we haven't talked about from the trading update was actually, you've got £8 million of cash, and you must be adding a lot of money to your balance sheet every single month. What are you going to do with it, Jay?
Well, that's a good question. We had this, we planned for this. We are going to seriously take a look at some acquisitions to underpin the business. And that was always the plan, was to, take the cash primarily from the COVID business, obviously, and look to develop the business and support our healthcare diagnostics group, potentially our personalized medicine group. But we want to take, the opportunity that we have here and grow the base business. That's the underlying goal. We're going to be very disciplined about it. We're going to not just, we've got a very disciplined approach to acquisitions, but we want to add on to the business so that, when this COVID thing finally, ends, we have a much larger base business to support.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a look at the house broker numbers from December. I haven't seen the ones which have come out this morning, but it gives you sort of like 60 to 70 million pounds worth of cash in 2022. So that gives you quite a bit of firepower. In fact, I think your market cap today is only around about 160 million. So it's sort of like, 30, at least a third of your value. So well, you're looking at sort of like potentially quite big deals, because you can pay for it almost immediately, can't you? Very quickly.
We'll have to see what we're doing, but yeah, we have the opportunity to do some nice acquisitions.
Yeah, I've got a favour actually. There's on the actual notes and stuff, because I was just seeing that they, when it comes to sort of predicting the COVID business, or effectively the infectious diseases business, all the COVID sort of drops out in mid sort of 2022. Now, I've run the same numbers. I've actually used their numbers and used valuation multiples and done a sum of the parts. So I've used, I think it's 15 times EBITDA for the sequencing business. I've used 12 times for the storage business, and I think 14 times for the healthcare diagnostics. And then, basically just add to the cash. And I get to, for a 2022 target price or valuation of £2.20. And actually, well, it's £2.18, which is almost surprisingly about the same as your current share price, but also very much in line with the Liberum. So I give them a big tick. I think that what they're doing is right. Now, just as the favour is, could you also just give them a little nudge and ask them to sort of run a few sort of like, other scenarios? Because I've run a few scenarios, and I'm a bit pessimistic. Sorry, I'm optimistic. I'm more optimistic in terms of the COVID. I actually think the zero COVID going forward from mid next year is a bit harsh. And I'm just throwing some numbers out for investors. But the way I will work it, if you use a 10 times the EBITDA multiple for your COVID testing business, and just do 30 million of extra turnover, which is frankly less than what you've currently done last year, then for every 30 million and using a 25% EBITDA drop through, you add £1 to the valuation. And what that means is that even if you go on an ongoing basis, you only did half of what you're expected for this year from 2023 onwards, which again is pretty pessimistic. You get to a share price of £4.50. Now that does sound a lot of numbers, okay? But it'd be nice to actually have some sort of like, anyway, all I would say for investors, have a look and just run a few scenarios and just see what the upside. And I think what, again, for investors to take interest and take comfort from, there's a very experienced investor called Chris Mills who owns 29% of SoureBio. And I think he realizes the up and the downside of this, that the share price is underpinned seems to be on a downside scenario. So but anyway, if you can get any influence at all over just Liberum, that would be really helpful. Just quick. Yeah, go on.
No, I said interesting point. I certainly, I'll certainly try to do that.
Okay, and then just on expected news flow going forward, you mentioned that you've got your results coming out in April. Anything in between? I'm guessing you might announce when you secure this on the framework with the NHS, or just basically it's going to be it's more. I mean, given you've already signed a surge agreement, which is directionally with the same customer, must give the investors confidence. As in like it's a business as usual. But would you announce that?
We certainly would. I think we are working with the DHSC on numerous projects, and I think the framework is a much larger set of testing opportunities than just testing in Nottingham. So I think we'll be cautiously optimistic that the work we've done with the DHSC would continue. And so we are looking at working with them as part of this effort, is a very serious partner.
Yeah, and even if you have to reposition or repurpose some of the capacity, given we've got extreme high demand around the country, you probably find there's some other customers who would actually want a few more tests.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Jay, and really look forward to hearing anything else. Sorry.
No, it's good. Thanks you, Paul. I appreciate the interest and coming on the show.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thanks then, Jay. I look forward to speaking to you again in April.
All right. Take care.